I met her at a time when I had learned the dangerous art of silence. People often mistake silence for weakness. They think if a man doesn't speak about his pain, he must not have any. But silence, when chosen, is not emptiness, it is control. Her name was Elena. She walked into my life the way expensive perfume enters a room. Soft at first, then impossible to ignore. Elegant, composed, always smiling just enough to appear kind but never enough to reveal her thoughts. She told me early on that she was married but unhappy. "I feel invisible," she said one evening, sitting across from me in a quiet cafe. "Like I exist only to support someone else's dreams." I nodded, not because I believed her, but because I understood the language of people who wanted to be believed. People don't lie because they're evil, I thought. They lie because the truth wouldn't choose them back. She didn't know who I was, and more importantly, she never asked. At least not the right questions. The man she thought I was. To Elena, I was simple. A man with modest clothes, a calm voice, no visible wealth, no flashy habits. I told her I worked in consulting, which was true, but incomplete truths are the most convincing lies. She spoke often about her husband, how he controlled money, how he made her feel small, how she deserved more. "I just want freedom," she said one night. Her fingers wrapped around a wine glass she couldn't afford without permission. That was the first time I noticed it. Not pain in her eyes, but calculation. Pain asks for understanding, I realized. Greed asks for opportunity. She didn't want love. She wanted leverage, the offer disguised as affection. Weeks passed. Conversations grew longer. Smiles lingered too long. The emotional line blurred, but I never crossed it. She did. One night, under the soft glow of city lights, she leaned closer and whispered, "If I left him, would you stay?" That was not a question. It was a test. I looked at her calmly and replied, "What would you be leaving for?" She smiled, thinking she had won something. "You," she said. But I saw it clearly now. She wasn't choosing me. She was shopping. When someone treats love like a transaction, they will always choose the highest bidder. The moment, everything changed. A week later, she disappeared. No calls, no messages, no explanations. Then one evening, her name appeared on my phone. Her voice was different, lighter. "I'm done," she said. "I found someone who can give me the life I deserve." I didn't ask who. She told me anyway. "He's wealthy, powerful. He knows how to take care of a woman." Then came the line that revealed everything. "I need to forget my husband completely. And I can't do that with someone like you." Like you. Not poor, not weak, just useful until replaced. Some people don't leave because they stop loving you. They leave because they think they've upgraded. She hung up without waiting for a response. She believed she had chosen power over a simple man. What she didn't know was that power had just watched her walk away. Who I really was. That night I stood in front of a mirror longer than usual. Same face, same calm eyes, same silence. But behind that silence was a truth Elena would never expect. I wasn't the man who chased wealth. I was the man who created it. I didn't compete for attention. I controlled outcomes. And the man she left me for? He worked for a company I quietly owned through 3 layers of names. The most dangerous man in the room is the one no one realizes they're standing in. She dumped me for money, to forget her husband. She had no idea. She had just walked away from the source. She thought she chose the winner. She didn't know she rejected the game itself. Chapter 2. The silence that started hurting her. Elena expected me to disappear. That was the pattern she was used to. Men reacting emotionally, angrily, desperately. Messages filled with questions. Calls unanswered but still repeated. Silence that begged. She got none of that from me. Days passed. Then weeks. No, why? No, please explain. No, I can change. Nothing. Silence doesn't chase. It watches. At first she enjoyed it, or so she told herself. No drama meant she had chosen right. The wealthy man, Victor, took her to places she could finally post online without hiding price tags. Rooftop dinners, weekend getaways, designer bags. She smiled for the world, but every smile needed an audience, and I wasn't watching. The first crack. It happened in a place she didn't expect, routine. A morning cafe. She ordered her drink confidently. Phone in hand, scrolling through notifications. Likes were there. Compliments too. But one thing was missing. Me! Not my messages. Not my attention. Not my reaction. She stared at her phone longer than necessary. Being ignored by someone you discarded hurts more than rejection. That night she checked my profile. No updates, no sadness, no hints of loss. Just quiet consistency. Victor was loud, I was absent. Victor liked to talk about money. He talked about deals loudly, making sure others could hear. He liked to be seen paying bills. Liked being admired. I had known men like him my entire life. They confused noise with power. Elena listened, smiled, nodded, but her thoughts wandered. Because Victor asked questions only about himself. I never had. Men who want to own you talk. Men who understand you listen. She noticed the difference too late. The message she never meant to send. It came after midnight. A short message. Careful words. Hope you're doing well. No apology. No explanation. Just curiosity wrapped in politeness. I saw it. I didn't reply. Not because I was hurt, but because the moment demanded discipline. The hardest power to control is the urge to prove your worth to someone who already lost it. 3 days later, another message. Are you okay? Still nothing from me. When silence turns into a mirror. Elena began remembering details she had ignored. How I never complained about my life. How I never bragged. How I never reacted emotionally. She remembered how safe the silence around me felt, and how loud everything else now was. We missed peace only after choosing chaos. Victor noticed her distraction. You okay? He asked once, irritation hiding behind concern. She nodded. But she was already elsewhere, the thing she didn't know. While Elena questioned her choices, my life moved with precision. A contract finalized. A company acquisition closed quietly. A name, Victor's name, appeared in a report on my desk. I read it once, then twice. Then I smiled. Not because of revenge, but because of timing. The universe doesn't rush. It waits until you understand the lesson. She hadn't left me for a better man. She had left me for a man standing on ground I owned. The regret begins without announcement. One evening, Elena stood in front of her mirror, dressed for another expensive dinner, and felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. She sent one last message. I think about you sometimes. This time I replied, just 4 words. I hope you're happy. Nothing more. Nothing less. She stared at the screen, heart tightening. Closure given too calmly. Hurts more than anger, because now she knew. I hadn't been waiting. I had already moved beyond her. She left to feel powerful. She returned to feel relevant. Chapter 3. When her world started shrinking. Elena began to feel it before she could explain it. Something was wrong, not loudly. Not dramatically, but in a way that crept into her confidence. The dinners were still expensive. The places were still beautiful. Victor still held her hand in public. Yet something essential was missing. Control. Luxury can distract you, but it can't silence doubt. The first public crack. It happened at a business gathering Victor insisted she attend. He liked showing her off, liked how people noticed her dress, her elegance, the way she stood beside him. To him, she was proof of success. But that night, something shifted. A conversation paused when my name came up. Not dramatically, just enough. Someone mentioned a company acquisition. Quiet, strategic, impressive. Victor laughed lightly, brushing it off. But his fingers tightened around his glass. Elena noticed. You don't fear competition, unless you know you're standing on borrowed ground. When she looked me up, later that night Elena searched my name. Not casually, not out of nostalgia, out of need. She read articles, corporate filings, quiet interviews, mentions of influence that didn't rely on noise. No flashy headlines, no arrogance, just results. Her chest tightened, because the man she left behind wasn't struggling. He was building. The most dangerous growth is the one that happens without witnesses. Victor started asking questions. He noticed her silence now. Why do you look distracted? You keep checking your phone. You're not listening. She denied it. But denial only works when you believe it yourself. Victor began making calls, asking about contracts, about investors. My name came up again, more frequently. And every time it did, his voice changed. Confidence fades fastest. When it realizes it's not the biggest voice in the room, the invitation. The real turning point came disguised as opportunity. A formal event, industry level, invite only. My name sat near the top of the guest list. Victor's company was listed below. Elena read the invitation twice. Then a third time. Her hands trembled slightly. Fate doesn't chase. It schedules encounters. She didn't ask Victor if we would attend, she assumed. Seeing me again, the room fell quieter when I arrived. Not because I demanded attention, because attention followed. I was calm, focused, familiar, but different. Not colder, sharper. Elena saw me across the room. Our eyes met for a brief second. I didn't smile. I didn't look away either. Just acknowledgement. The strongest revenge is indifference backed by success. Her breath caught. Victor noticed the moment she realized the truth. Introductions were made. Formal, polite. Victor tried to establish dominance with humor. I responded with clarity. Facts, decisions, ownership. The balance shifted visibly. People leaned toward me, not him. Elena stood frozen. Because in that moment, she understood something irreversible. She hadn't left me for someone better. She had left me before I became undeniable. Timing decides regret, not love. Her message that night. She didn't sleep. At 2:17 a.m., my phone lit up. I didn't know. I read it once, then locked the screen. Some realizations arrive after the door has already closed. She thought she escaped a small life. She never realized she walked away from her future. Chapter 4. The fall was quiet, but it was public. Elena woke up to silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that presses against your chest and reminds you that something is already slipping away. Victor wasn't beside her. She checked the time. No message. No note. Just absence. People don't leave loudly. They leave when they think you won't stop them. Victor's confidence started cracking. Victor had always believed power was loud. He spoke over people. He interrupted meetings. He laughed at risks. But lately, the room no longer followed him. Contracts stalled. Calls went unanswered. Meetings were postponed indefinitely. Every delay traced back to the same source. Me. Not directly. Never publicly. Just influence moving faster than ego. You don't need to destroy someone when you can simply outgrow them. Elena tried to intervene. She suggested dinners, introductions, connections. Victor snapped. For the last time, stop saying his name. She flinched. Because the anger wasn't directed at me. It was directed at fear. Anger is what insecurity sounds like when it's finally heard. That night, Elena cried quietly in the bathroom while Victor took calls he couldn't control. She remembered another man. A quieter one. A patient one. One who never raised his voice, yet was now shaping rooms he never entered. The boardroom shift. The real damage happened in a boardroom Elena wasn't allowed into. Victor's biggest backer withdrew. No explanation. No warning. Just a polite statement. Strategic redirection. Victor threw a glass against the wall when he got home. Elena watched silently, because deep down, she already knew the reason. Power doesn't announce itself. It rearranges the room. The article? The article came out the next morning. Not about Victor. About me. A profile. Calm. Measured. It spoke of long-term vision. Ethics. Quiet leadership. And in one small paragraph, a line appeared. Several competitors have recently lost market position following strategic realignments. No names. But everyone understood. Elena's hands shook as she read it. When your past becomes the headline, your present starts collapsing. Her attempt to reach me. This time she didn't text. She called. Once. Twice. I let it ring. Then she left a voice message. Her voice wasn't confident anymore. I just want to talk. I deleted it. Closure isn't owed, especially when respect was optional. Victor crossed a line. Desperate men make careless decisions. Victor tried to undermine me publicly. A rumor, a suggestion, a half-truth stretched too far. It backfired within hours. Receipts surfaced. Facts corrected. Silence followed. His reputation took a hit he couldn't repair. The moment you attack someone stronger, you announce your own weakness. Elena watched his world shrink in real time and realized she was trapped inside it. The dinner she never finished. That evening, she sat across from Victor at a restaurant they once loved. He barely touched his food. She barely spoke. Finally, she asked, "Do you regret anything?" He didn't answer. Because regret requires honesty. Some people don't regret their choices. They regret losing control over the outcome. She didn't lose him in a moment. She lost him the day she chose someone who needed to dominate.
Why did this happen? My heart is breaking.
Chapter 5. Regret is loud when no one is listening. Elena used to believe regret was quiet, something that crept in at night, whispered through memory, then disappeared by morning. She was wrong. Regret was loud. It echoed, and it demanded witnesses. Regret doesn't come to teach. It comes to collect. Her world started asking questions. People noticed. At events, she smiled too late. In conversations, she paused too long. Her confidence, once effortless, now felt rehearsed. Someone asked casually, "Isn't your partner worried about the competition lately?" She forced a laugh. He doesn't worry. But the lie tasted bitter. The first thing regret steals is the ability to lie comfortably. Victor began to shrink. Victor wasn't losing everything. He was losing control. Meetings ended early. Invitations stopped arriving. He started drinking earlier in the evenings. One night, he said the words Elena feared most. He's everywhere. She knew exactly who he meant. And for the first time, she didn't feel protected. When the man you chose fears the man you left, your mistake becomes impossible to ignore. The public moment. It happened at a charity gala, the kind where cameras pretend to be polite. I arrived late. Not intentionally, just unbothered. The room shifted. Not dramatically, subtly. People turned, voices lowered, smiles adjusted. Elena froze. Across the room, our eyes met. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I didn't react. I simply continued walking. Nothing hurts more than realizing you are no longer a memory worth acknowledging. Her breakdown wasn't private. In the restroom, Elena stared at herself. Perfect dress, perfect hair, perfect failure. She whispered my name and felt ridiculous doing it. When you say someone's name to empty air, you finally understand how alone you are. Outside, Victor laughed too loudly with people who no longer respected him. Inside, Elena cried without tears. Her last attempt. That night, she sent a message. Not emotional, not dramatic, just honest. I chose wrong. I read it and put my phone down. The truth loses its power when it arrives after the damage is done. Why I didn't respond. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. I had already grieved her. I had already rebuilt. She wasn't late to my life. She was late to her own consequences. Closure isn't silence. Closure is when someone no longer matters enough to answer. Victor's final mistake. Victor tried to confront me. Not publicly, privately. It didn't go the way he imagined. I didn't threaten him. I didn't argue. I simply stated facts, markets, timelines, decisions already made. He left knowing something worse than defeat. He left knowing it was permanent. Real power doesn't humiliate. It removes options. Elena understood too late. She watched Victor sleep that night and realized she had traded certainty for excitement, depth for display, a future for a moment, and the man she underestimated no longer lived in her world. Some doors don't close loudly. They disappear. She didn't lose him to another woman. She lost him to the version of himself she never believed he could become. Chapter 6. The truth arrives without mercy. Regret didn't just stay with Elena anymore. It followed her. Into rooms, into conversations, into silence. When regret becomes visible, it stops being personal and starts becoming punishment. Whispers turned into names. People started connecting dots. Deals falling through. Victor being excluded. My name appearing in places it never used to. A woman at a private dinner asked casually, "So, when did he come back?" Elena's hand trembled around her glass. The past doesn't knock. It announces itself through others. Victor finally understood the scale. Victor had always believed power was loud. Threats, money, visibility. But what he was facing now was quiet, relentless. One by one, his partnerships dissolved. No drama, no explanation, just distance. You don't feel real power approaching. You feel the absence of support. That night, Victor finally asked the question he'd avoided. "Who is he, really?" Elena didn't answer, because she already knew the truth she never asked about. She remembered things she once ignored. How I never spoke about my losses. How I never defended myself loudly. How I walked away without asking for anything. She searched and found everything. Not headlines. Records. Ownership trails. Quiet acquisitions. Decisions made years ago. The man she left wasn't weak. He was patient. Her realization was devastating. She sat alone with her laptop glowing in the dark. Every file confirmed the same truth. I hadn't risen after she left. I had always been rising. She just wasn't important enough to notice. Some people don't leave you at your lowest. They leave you before your silence becomes strength. Victor's panic became desperate. Victor tried calling favors. Old names, old numbers. None answered. When he looked at Elena, his voice cracked. You knew? She didn't lie. I didn't ask. Choosing comfort over truth always ends with betrayal from both sides. The public confirmation. It happened during a conference. No spotlight, no speech, just acknowledgement. Someone introduced me as the primary decision-maker behind the last 3 market shifts. Applause followed. Polite, respectful. Elena watched from the back. Invisible. Recognition hurts most. When you realize you were never invited to witness it. Why, I still didn't look back. I felt her presence. I always did, but I didn't turn. Because some stories don't deserve sequels. Walking away isn't cruelty. It's clarity refusing to negotiate. Victor's collapse was quiet. No scandals. No drama. Just erosion. He didn't lose everything. He lost relevance. Failure isn't losing what you have. It's realizing no one needs you anymore. Elena's final understanding. She stood alone that night. Not angry, not hopeful, just aware. She hadn't been replaced. She had been outgrown. You don't miss the man you lost. You miss the future you thought you owned. She didn't walk away from a nobody. She walked away from a man who didn't need her to become everything. Chapter 7. The door that never opened again. Elena didn't plan the meeting. She didn't prepare words or rehearse emotions. She just showed up. Because when regret matures, it stops asking for permission. Some confrontations don't happen because there's hope. They happen because silence has become unbearable. The place where it finally ended. It was a quiet hotel lounge. Neutral. Unclaimed. Perfect. No memories lived there. No promises were made there. Which meant nothing could be rewritten. I arrived on time. She stood when she saw me. Not with confidence. Not with desperation. Just acceptance mixed with fear. When someone stands to greet you, but already knows you won't stay. That's regret at its purest. She tried to apologize, but stopped. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Because apologies are heavy when they arrive too late. I didn't know, she finally said. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. Just I didn't know. Ignorance isn't innocence. It's a choice to look away. The truth she didn't expect. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. I didn't defend myself. I never needed you to know, I said calmly. I needed you to stay when you didn't. Her eyes filled, because she understood. This wasn't about money, or power, or status. It was about absence. Love doesn't die from betrayal alone. It dies from being abandoned while still breathing. She asked the question that ended everything. Is there any chance? She asked quietly. Not for romance, for relevance. I looked at her, not with anger, not with pride. With peace. No, I said. Because I didn't move on to hurt you. I moved on because I survived you. Healing doesn't reopen old doors. It builds new walls where pain once lived. Why I didn't blame her anymore. She cried. Softly, silently, not dramatic, not manipulative, just real. And for the first time I didn't feel satisfaction, only distance. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's emotional absence. I realized then, she wasn't my enemy. She was my past. And the past doesn't deserve arguments. It deserves boundaries. Her final realization. She wiped her tears and nodded. I understand, she whispered. And for the first time, she did. Because she wasn't losing a man. She was losing the version of herself that thought she could leave and return unchanged. You don't regret leaving someone. You regret discovering they became whole without you. The last words that were never spoken. There was nothing left to say. No hugs. No closure rituals. No promises to remain connected. We stood. I turned first. Not dramatically. Naturally. Like someone walking out of a room that no longer belonged to him. Permanent separation isn't loud. It's quiet confidence walking forward. What came after her? She didn't chase me. She didn't call again. She didn't post cryptic messages. Because even she knew this ending wasn't cruel. It was final. Some people don't lose you. They arrive too late to recognize you. What came after me? Peace. Not happiness fueled by revenge. Not pride sharpened by victory. Just peace, the kind that doesn't look back. The strongest revenge is living so fully that their absence becomes permanent. She once ignored me while I waited. Now she remembered me while I walked away. And that difference was everything. She thought ignoring me would break me. She never imagined it would set me free.